All right. So what we're going to do first is, study how to measure angles. And normally we would do this by hand. We will draw angles on a piece of paper and then use this protractor, that's what it's called, to measure them. But right now, definitely I can't watch you do that. But at least we can simulate that classroom experience by using this. So your goal is to measure each angle, let's say angle AOB, by using this red line over here. So how are you going to do it? The first red dot must stay on the zero line. So this is the zero. That's the beginning point, right? You probably are wondering why there's 180 to the right of zero. It's because a protractor can measure both ways. Okay. So if you want to measure angle AOB, you can do that in two ways. Either um, start counting from zero and then go in this direction and figure out where it falls at. Or if you want to start from 180 and then go backwards, right? And then just subtract whatever number the blue line falls at, and then you will get the same measurement. Okay, but that's a more complicated one. All right, so what you're going to do is drag this second point over here. So drag that one until you stop at the other portion of the angle. Okay, there you go. And then, so measure or find the corresponding number determined by the red shaded portion. So starting from 0, 10, 20, 30, and then this is right in the middle. So this angle will measure 35 degrees. Okay, so what I would like you to do is try measuring the other angles. So starting from AOC and then AOD and so on, and type in the chat whatever measures you get. Okay. Um, okay. Hi, Adrian. Um, okay. Can I answer that later, honey? While I check 1.4. Okay. All right. So for those who just joined us right now, you click on Desmos measuring angles, and you're practicing how to measure each angle drawn here by moving this red, dot, okay, to shade their interiors. And then in the chat, you're going to write down the measurement of those angles. Okay. So how will you type in their measures? You can name the angle by, let's say, using three letters. So AOB equals, and then you put the measure. Okay. All right. So in the first example, AOB, the measure of that was 35 degrees. So you can write something like that. Okay. According to Nicholas, AOC is 65. Ben said AOG is 110. Cool. Just make sure next time, Ben, you use capital letters because the points are named using capital letters. Okay, Caitlin said AOD is 110. Okay. And Caitlin has 35, 65, 110, 145. Nice. Okay, now I'm going to let you explore on your own. This time you can move both points. So let's say, for example, I move the second point to G, but I don't start from A anymore. I start at B. Okay, so now can you give me the measure of that angle? So what is the measurement of angle BOD? Nicholas said 75. Okay. Can somebody explain how you guys got 75? And if you can explain two different ways of getting it, that will be nice. Because you do 110 minus 35. That's good. Okay, and if you remember when we were doing the distance postulate, we were also looking at the difference between two numbers, right? And we're getting the absolute value. So we could also do 35 minus 110, right? But you may think, but Ms. Arciaga, that's negative. I know, but we can get the absolute value, right? So that's one way, Rihanna. Good job. Or if I'm a visual person, I'm just going to count these like that's 10, 20, 30, 40, 60, 70, and so on. Did I count wrong? Okay, so that's going to be 75, right? Okay, good. Now, I wanted to mention that the absolute value formula when Rihanna mentioned 110 minus 35, because that's one of the things that we will actually do today. And that's the reason why your warm up is on solving equations. Okay, so last but not the least, oh, what did I do? Um, okay, can you guys get the measure of DOE for me? DOE, 30. You guys agree? So DOE, is it exactly 30? Started at 110 and it ended at 145. I think Tessa, Giovanna, yep, it should be 35 because if you count, that's 10. That's one whole chunk right there 10, 20, 30, and then you stop in the middle. So 35. It's okay, Rocky. Okay. Awesome, Brian and Nicola. Same answer as what Tessa and Giovanna said. Good. Okay. So at least now we had a little bit of experience of how to measure angles. I hope we could do that by hand next time. I did request that you find or borrow like a protractor and a compass. Hopefully that will be available next week. Okay, so now let's move on to our lesson today. The lesson 1.1 or 1.5, measuring and constructing angles. Okay. And one of the very first things that we will do, one of the five things we will do today is to talk about the measurement of angles. And the first or second, I think, slides are pretty much just reviews of what you learned in middle school. So we're just going to define them um, formally now. It says I need access. Ooh, my bad. Okay. I'm going to same. All right. Okay. I will share. Give me one sec. I probably forgot to do that. Okay, it's still loading. I'm just waiting for the share button to activate. Okay, share. You could finish a song waiting for this one. Okay, come on. Come on. Come on. For real? Are you kidding me? Again. Oh no, I know, Matthew. Oh, there. So, change link. Uh, anyone in this group can view. Yeah, I did set that. Okay, did they just. Okay, I see somebody. It works now. Okay, that is so weird. See, I don't know. Anyway, at least you're in now. Okay, nice. So just make a copy for yourself so you can type in it. And as you can see here, the first slide is about how to name an angle. I have 3 question marks here for you already. There you go. So if you already know what to type, go ahead and start. But while you're making a copy for yourself, let me just start reading what the definition of an angle is. An angle um, is composed of 2 non-collinear rays. If you remember when we were talking about collinear rays, I asked, well, what would happen if they don't fall on the same line? And this is exactly what we get. We're going to form an angle. Now, the common endpoint that the 2 rays have, you call that the vertex, okay, just like what we talked about in the polygons last time. And the 2 rays that make up your angle, you call them the sides. All right, so based on this example over here, okay, you can move it around. An angle actually splits a plane into 2 parts. So the red colored here is the interior, and everything outside is the exterior. So using this as an example, how can you name an angle? So what name would you give this angle over here at the bottom? Anybody? And if you don't know where to find your symbol for angle, you go to Insert, Special Characters, and then you draw the symbol for angle so it will find it faster for you. Okay, and you see that one? Okay, it's angle. There's different stuff, but just use this one. And once you have that, you could just copy and paste it later on. Okay, so let me leave the chat open so I can read. Acute. Yes, honey, it is acute. That's how you classify it, but now we're going to name it. So for example, like this one, if you use the vertex letter, you can name it angle A, right? So that's one. So in other words, you can use one letter, and that letter has to be the vertex. Okay. Now, other ways to name that same angle? Anybody? Okay, and what other ways can you name the same angle? Angle what? Oops, what did I do? Anybody? How about the number inside the angle? Can you use that? Okay, so you have like a number 1, right, inside the angle. You can also use it to name the angle, but make sure it doesn't have a degree sign. If it has a degree sign, then you cannot use as a name because it is already the actual measure. Okay, and last but not the least, we can also name it using 3 letters, one on each side and then the vertex in the middle. For example, BAC, which is the same thing as CAB. So the vertex cannot commute. The vertex is fixed. Okay? And the 2 letters, C and B, can commute. All right, so using those as an example, go ahead and name each of these in 3 different ways. Either type in the chat or unmute yourself. And you can copy and paste that so you don't have to keep typing the thing. So name each of them in 3 different ways and then just change the letter. I think I forgot to place a number for the inside here. Okay. So first, use the vertex letter. So what's the vertex letter for number 1? Q. Very good. I forgot to put a number, so just delete that one. Okay. And then for the second one, the vertex cannot commute. You can flip the P and the R around. So what could be our answers? RP. You have to give me three letters, honey. P. Okay, PQR. All right, or RQP. That's right. Okay, three letters. LOL. Nice one, Matthew. You got me there. Okay. All right. So now let's move on to the second example. Okay. All right. So now I'll do the same thing. What's the vertex letter? Y. And then one. Okay. And then three letters. Don't forget. X, Y, Z. And then, okay, Z, Y, X. Great. It seems simple, but you know, I'm telling you already, like in the tests, and this happens every year, a lot of students get confused with the names. So when you name the angles wrong, definitely uh, the computation will slightly change. So you have to make sure that you're naming the angles correctly, and you will see that letter when we start solving. Okay, so go ahead and finish the third one. So vertex, number, and then three letters. Vertex, anybody? Okay, E. Number, two. Very good, Liana and Lilian. And then put the three letters in. So fed and F. Okay, cool. All right. Are there any questions on how to name angles? So remember, classifying and naming are two different things. Well, at least in geometry. So right now we just learned how to name them. Now in the next slide, okay, this is where you're gonna classify them. Okay, so we already tried doing a protractor. We said that the sides of an angle can be matched with a number, right? From 0 to 180. When you go to pre-calculus and algebra 2, you will look at the circle. And in that case, the angle will be equal to 360 total or even more. You could even go up to 720 and all multiples of 360. But in geometry, we're only going to restrict ourselves to 180. Okay. So what are the different classifications um, of angles? So what I would like you to do is in the chat, choose one of these. Okay, choose one of these and define them using if and only if. You remember our biconditional statements? So you have to define an angle by using the if and only if statement. Oh, what did I do? Okay. All right. So I'm going to write one as an example. So let's say I want to define acute angle. So an angle is acute if and only if its measure is between 0 and 90. So between 0 and 90, not including 0, not including 90. Okay, so that's a model for you. I'm sure you've heard those types of angles in middle school, but now we're going to define them using the biconditional statement. Go for it. Type in the chat. Anybody typing in the chat? What was the question? Choose one of these. I already modeled the acute for you. So choose one of the three other angles and define it using the if and only if statement. So what is a right angle? When is an angle right? So go ahead and type that in the chat. Or if you want it faster, you can unmute yourself and say it. An angle is right if and only if its measure is 90 degrees. Very good, Rihanna. So if and only if it measures exactly 90. Good job. Next one, please. Volunteer. Say something about an obtuse. And I figured we don't have to write those down in our notebook, right? Because you already know what they are. But if you want to write them down, then go ahead and copy and paste them from the chat to your notebook if you want to. Somebody say the definition of obtuse angle. Come on, we need them in the next slide. You have to know like what they are. Caitlin said, if and only if its measures between 90 and 180. Very good, Caitlin. Awesome. And one last volunteer. What's a straight angle? Straight angle. An angle is only right if and only if its measure is 180. Okay, yes, Dominic, that's for a straight angle. Awesome. So it's exactly 180 degrees, or they form a straight line or two collinear rays. Nice. Okay, so after reading all those definitions, your job is to classify these angles in the figure. Okay, so for letter A, you're gonna type what, or you're gonna classify that angle. Your choices are those that were defined by your classmates. You will say whether it's acute, obtuse, right, or straight. Okay, so whenever you're ready. A is obtuse, according to Brian. Yes, Brian, that's right. Because GHK is my pen working? Okay, GHK is this one. So it's more than 90 degrees. It's this whole thing over here. Okay. Caitlin said B is right. JHL. Very good, Caitlin. That's a right angle. And then what about letter C? Caitlin said it's acute. So letter C is LHK. Very good. That's an acute angle. That's awesome. All right. Why is letter C not formatting correctly? Okay, so do you guys have any questions as to how you're going to classify angles? So these are the classifications of angles based on their measurement. Okay? Yes, Linnea, B is right. That's also correct. So later on, in chapter 2, we will be talking about angles that are classified based on how they look like and not based on how they measure. Okay, next slide. Congruent angles. Okay, so last time, I think in the first lesson, we talked about congruent segments. Now we're going to talk about congruent angles. So two angles are congruent if and only if they have the same measure. And I took the liberty of writing those down already. This is the biconditional based on this example. So angle CAB is congruent to angle FGE if and only if the measure of angle CAB is equal to measure of angle FGE. So take note of how I typed it. When I use the congruent symbol, I don't put the letter M before because I'm talking about the angles themselves. But if I put the equal sign, then I put the letter M before the angle because I'm talking about their measure. And then I just broke down the biconditional into two conditional statements, if, then. Bottom line is they have the same measure. Chat. What does the M stand for? The measure. The measure of angle CAB is equal to the measure of FTE. Cool. So now you have to answer these two questions for me based on this quilt right here at the bottom. Identify the congruent angles labeled in the quilt design. So that's letter A. Identify the congruent angles labeled in the quilt design. And make sure on your notebook you type it up correctly. You can copy and paste the symbols from here if you want to. Okay. GHE and ABC are congruent. Okay, how did you know that they're congruent, Rihanna? GHE, this is H, and then ABC, this is B. So are you sure about how you ordered the letters? Remember when you say GHE that I go to H, I don't go to G. The vertex is the middle, and that's the most important part of the angle. What's a congruent angle again? Congruent means, it's on this slide, Dominic. Congruent means they have the same measure. And if the measures are not showing in the quilt, um, you can look at the tick marks, the arcs that are placed on them. Okay, so look at the marks that are placed on them. If it's too small, okay, so which ones are labeled in the same way? This one has one tick mark. That's letter G. Now, what letter or angle in the other figure, okay, has the same number of tick marks? So what are they? B. Good. Okay, so let's type that up here. So for letter A, what takes time here is the writing. So A, you have angle. Can I just copy the angle right here? Control C, Control V. So angle G, right? Or if I could go back to what Rihanna wrote earlier, it has to be um, HGF. So you have to put the letter G in the middle. Okay, so angle G is congruent. Let me just copy that congruent symbol again. Control C, Control V. Okay, and I have to copy that that angle symbol again. All right, and then G, according to Caitlin, corresponds with angle B. There you go, because they have the same number of tick marks. All right. Now, if you want to name them in another way by using 3 letters, okay, let me just put that. So you place, could be F in front. So F, G, H. So the letter G is still in the middle. Okay, and then to write the other partners for the other angle, F is the one that has 2 tick marks, right? So where am I? So that's F. I got F, G, H, and then I go. This one is not corresponding to F. We will write that one later on in the other portion. So to name angle B, you could put ABC. So A, B, C. All right, so that's one pair of congruent angles, right? Another one is, let me just copy that so we don't have to copy everything again one by one. Okay, this still not letter B, it's still a continuation. Okay, so now let's look at the 2 angles with tick marks, with 2 tick marks or arcs. The first one is F, and the partner of F in the other is letter D. Okay, so 1, 2 tick marks, and then 1, 2 tick marks. So if you want to name angle F using 3 letters, just make sure that you put the letter F in the middle, and you could use E on the left and then G on the other side. While for the other angle, make sure D is in the middle. So I could go A, D, C. All right, so those are the 2 pairs of congruent angles. Now I have a question. Can we conclude that the other angles that don't have arcs on them are congruent to their corresponding partners in the other part. Can we make that conclusion? Yes or no? What do you guys think? Okay, if you're finished typing, can you conclude that those angles H and E that don't have marks in the green portion are congruent to C and A in the other pattern? If they don't have those arcs, can we make that conclusion? Or we don't have enough information to say whether they're congruent or not? What do you guys think? Yes? If they were triangles, I would say you can conclude that the remaining angles are congruent, because if two pairs, okay, of corresponding angles in the triangles are congruent, then the third remaining pairs would also be congruent. But since they're quadrilaterals, they're four-sided, we don't have enough information, okay, to say that they're congruent or not. We don't even know if they're parallelograms or trapezoids, right? So we can't tell for sure whether those angles with no marks are congruent to each other. Okay, let's answer letter B. If ADC is 140, ADC is 140, then what is EFG? What is EFG? What should be your answer? If ADC is 140, ADC is the angle with two marks. So if it's 140, then what is the measure of the other angle? EFG. 140. Very good, Matthew, because they're congruent to each other. So whatever measure goes on one also goes for the other, right? Okay. So on this slide, we learned how to identify congruent angles without being explicitly stated. So in other words, to find congruent angles, you have to identify which angles have the same number of tick marks. Okay. If they don't have any tick marks, don't assume that they're congruent, because figures are not drawn to scale. All right, let's move on to the next slide. In the next slide, this is where you're going to write down equations. This is where you're going to write down equations. Okay, if you remember in the first lesson we did, we had a segment addition postulate. And it said that if you have two shorter segments making up a whole segment, just add the two short ones to make up the whole, right? So for angles, we can do the same thing. If two angles are combined together and they share a side in the middle, then the measure of the biggest angle is actually the sum of the measures of the two smaller ones. Okay? So in symbols, though, and in geometry, if P is in the interior of the biggest angle, RST, then RST, which is the biggest one, what did I do? Okay, is equal to RSP plus PST. Okay? Now you call these angles adjacent angles. Adjacent because they're side by side. They have the same vertex and they share a common side in the middle. Now look at this S pattern over here. Why are they not adjacent? Can you tell me why? Why are they not adjacent? Why are they not adjacent? What does adjacent mean again? Right here. They have the same vertex and share one side. They don't share a vertex or side. Now, which is it that they don't share? The side or the vertex? because they do share something here in the middle. Okay, yes. So they share a side, but they don't share the vertex, right? Cool. All right. Nice. So we're going to use this postulate to solve for x in these diagrams. This is where we need to write equations and solve. Okay? So let's see. 44. Okay, can you tell me what your working equation was, Nicholas, so I can write it down over here? How did you set it up? That was an accident? Come on. So what am I going to add? So LKN is the whole thing, right? That's the whole thing. And then LKM is this portion here, while MKN is this one. If you're confused what angles we're referring to, like trace them with your finger or with your mouse, like MKN. So you follow the vertex, you follow the sides. So if we're going to add them up, you can start with either of these two. It doesn't matter. Okay? So if I start with LKM, because that's the first thing mentioned here, then I'm going to get 2x plus 10. And then now I'm going to add something. I'm going to add the other angle, this one, 4x minus 3. And then equal to, now I got to make it equal to the biggest angle, to the combination of both. And in the given problem, LKN is 145. Cool. Now that's why your warm-up or your interleave review today is solving equations. Because, yeah, see how we go back to algebra 1 after setting it up? Okay, so now can you take it from here and tell me what the value of x is? Combine like terms. 2x and 4x becomes 6x, right? And then combine 10 and minus 3 together, so that's 7. Okay. All right. And Rihanna said LKM is 56, MKN is 89, where x is equal to 23. Okay. So can you help me here, Rihanna? So when you subtracted 145 minus 7, what did you get? Okay, so that's going to be 138. And then when you divided both sides by 6, that's how you got your 23, right? Okay, cool. So now that you have the 23, Rihanna substituted 23 into the expressions. Okay. I wish the district will provide all of us like a touch screen thing, right? So it's faster. So 2x plus 10 will become 2. I will plug in Rihanna's 23 plus 10. And that's how she got, that's 46 plus 10, which is 56. So that's for LKM. All right. So maybe I should label them like this. LKM. Okay. I should put the angle symbol, but I'm too lazy to do that right now. I'll go back to that later on. So we can finish this one. And then the other angle she mentioned is MKN. All right. So 4, plug in your x. Okay, so 4, the x is 23. If you already know what to do, like keep going. Move on to the next problem. Minus 3. And that's how she got the 89. Okay. All right. And as promised, I'm going to go back and okay. All right. Do you know of an app that transcribe what you say into text? That would be nice to have, huh? During online learning. Okay. All right. So that's how you do the first one. Okay, next. Unless you guys have questions. Given that KLM is a straight angle, find KLN and NLM. Find KLN and NLM. So what do you know about a straight angle? 180. Very good. So then we're going to use that for the sum. So 10x minus 5 plus 4x plus 3 equals 180. Okay. So you get 14x minus 2 is equal to 180. Correct me if I'm wrong. Right? And then you get 14x is equal to 182. And then does 182, does 14 divide 182 exactly? What would that be? 13. Thanks, Lillian. All right. So then let's substitute to find KLN. You can also do that in your head if you don't want to write the whole thing up. So if you want to know the measure of KLN, just substitute that in your head. 10 times 13 is 130 minus 5. That's 125, right? And then if you want to know the measure of, yep, Brian, nice. And then you want to know the measure of NLM. So 4 times 13 is 52 plus 3. Rihanna said 55. There you go. Okay. All right. Now, last but not the least on this page, this time it's a right angle. So how did you define a right angle earlier? 90 degrees. So then that's basically what we're going to do. 2x plus 2 plus x plus 1, we're just going to make it equal to 90. So in this lesson, you must know how to write an equation, what the measurement of the actual angle is, and just get the x by itself. So that's 3x plus 3 is equal to 90 degrees. So you get 3x is equal to 87. And then does 87, or does 3 divide 87 exactly? 29. Okay. All right. So find EFH. Oh, measure. Control V, EFH. Substitute that in your head. So 2 times 29 is 58 plus 2, 60. Okay, and then of course the other one will be HFG, 30. All right. Yup, Jeremiah. Okay, so how are we in this slide? I know there's a lot of computations today. Yeah. Okay, questions? Now, once you know how to set up an equation, then you will find the last one very easy because I was confused, but now I understand. Thank you. I'm happy to hear that, honey. Yeah. And let me know if there's anything I need to go over for you. Okay? All right. Hey, Dominic, is there anything you want me to go over, honey, before I move on to the last one? Ask silly. Who's silly? Siri or silly? You're talking about something I don't know again. Next. Okay, so angle bisector. All right, an angle bisector is a ray that divides an angle into two angles that are congruent. So pretty much it splits in half, right? And I wrote down the if and only if over here. So I'm sorry if I kind of filled these up for you. I just thought that if we're going to write all of these now, then we're probably still in slide number 2 right now, right? Okay, so I know it's not the ideal way to do it, but okay, I'm sorry. So the YW bisects XYZ, this one, if and only if XYW is congruent to ZYW. So it's like the angle addition postulate in the previous slide, but they are now congruent to each other. Okay, and I wrote down the if then statements here by switching the hypotenuse and the conclusion around. Okay, so the bottom line is if you have an angle bisector, the angle is just split into 2 equal parts. Let me say that again. Okay, this angle bisector splits the entire big Pac-Man here into 2 equal parts. So using that information, if QS bisects PQR and measure of angle PQS is 24, what is the measure of PQR? And I know you can do that in your head. Okay, Jeremiah, you have the right answer to the wrong question. So 24 will go to the other small part. Yep. Yes. So the question was asking for PQR. And it's good that you mentioned that. So Rayana said it's 48. So it's good that you mentioned that because it's a common misconception. If you guys are not being careful in the test, it could be one of those that you will get wrong. Then yeah, it's 48. Awesome. So 24 here, 24 there. So we're going to write measure of angle PQR is equal to 24 plus 24. So that will give you 48. Thank you. Equals 48. All right. Okay, so now we have to draw. Okay, we have to draw. And to do this, you will either draw on paper or draw in Google Draw. Don't you have like a Google Draw? Or go to GeoGebra, whichever platform you can use online. All right. Okay. So I am gonna draw. So angle M and P is my pen drawing. Not even. Okay, so angle M and P is a straight angle. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, sorry for my kiddo. All right. Angle M and P is a straight angle, and NQ bisects M and P. So straight angle is 180, right? So we know that the middle letter must be N. There you go. Okay. And then NQ. So NQ, I start at N, and it has to be a bisector. So if it's a straight angle, a bisector must split it into 2 equal parts. Okay, so this is Q. All right. Now draw M and P. We did that already. And draw NQ as well. And use arcs to mark the congruent angles in your diagram. Now use arcs like this, or if you already know that this is 180 and 180 divided by 2 is 90, then use the right angle symbol. And the right angle symbol is not an arc, but a square. There you go. Is it enough to like put just one? Well, yes, but okay, to be sure, just put both. Okay. It's enough to put one because if one is 90, then 180 minus 90 is also 90. Okay, find the angle measures of the congruent angles. So just like what we said earlier, if this is angle 1 and this is angle 2, so see what I'm doing? I don't want to name them using 3 letters, right? So then I write the names or the numbers inside so that I can use that instead. So that means measure of angle 1 plus measure of angle 2, that's going to be equal to 180 total because the blue one is a straight angle, right? So that I know that these two must be equal, right? So that means you can replace one by the other, okay, equal to 180. So that means measure of angle 1 is 90 degrees. So if measure of angle 1 is 90 degrees, then automatically measure of angle 2 is also 90 degrees. Okay. All right. Now, similarly, you can also write x plus x is equal to 180, right? Okay, so if this is x, that is also x, then you get 2x is 180. So that makes x is equal to 90 degrees. So whichever equation you guys are more comfortable in using, then yeah. Okay, so you can write that. Okay, so um, questions? Please use your independent time today to do the interleave warm up. Um, I haven't checked the website. I don't know what is scheduled on Monday. Are we meeting on Monday? I gotta check. San Pedro High School. Because I think week 4. Okay, does anyone know the answer? You don't think so? I know. Week 5. Week 5 next week. So are we meeting? Are we meeting? Wait, why is this week 3? I did not click on week 3. I said week 5. Okay. So on Monday, yes. Okay, we are meeting on Monday. Okay. So I needed to ask because if you have any unfinished, that's not awkward. So if you have any unfinished Schoology work, we can also do them on Mondays. So that's why I said, the minimum is you finish everything in the digital notebook and the interleave warm up. So if there's any practice thing that you did not finish, then yes, okay, we can finish them on Monday. Okay. I did not assign any Delta Math homework for you because I know I uploaded a bunch of independent work in Schoology, so I'm just kind of balancing those two. So for now, just focus on Schoology and you'll be good. Yeah. Okay. Ask questions if you have any. If you don't have any questions, then start on any independent work that you can do. Have a nice day, Dominic. Bye bye. Bye, Nicholas. Bye. Have a good one, honey. Ben, bye bye. Are you gonna change the date? Oh yeah. Thanks for letting me know. Which one again? Is it the 1.5 or the 1.4? The 1.5. Oh, thanks for reminding me. I know, like they called me out on that and I'm like, oops, sorry. I did not. Yeah, I'm confused, you know? My schedule is still like um I'm going to school every day. So what date did I exactly put? Oh yeah. My bad. Darn it. Okay. So I'll put it until Friday just to make sure. Okay. Alrighty. I'm go get a Trax burger. Hey, Mr. Siaga, I messaged you about. Really? Oh my gosh. Okay, Caitlin, I'm going to fix that. Like now. Uh-huh. I don't know what happened. Oh my god. I got a D on Delta Math. Okay. I gotta finish Delta Math and see. Oh my god, what is going on? Okay, I'm gonna write your names down. So Max, and then Caitlin, Maggie. Okay, I'm gonna work on that like right now. You can see my screen is like going